Gotta keep things quick this time because the deadline is looming, so let's just begin this next episode of Romney's Reviews. This week we have the second Snow White film, Snow White and the Huntsman. You can recall that I previously reviewed Mirror Mirror, which you can find the link right here. At least if I'm pointing properly. I'm new at the annotations thing, just bear with me. So again, the noticeable things, if just looking at the trailer, is that this is considerably a lot darker than any other Snow White film that we're used to. And it's also a lot darker than Mirror Mirror. Best way I can describe it, this is Snow White meets Game of Thrones. Now, I'll be honest, I have not seen Game of Thrones, but I've seen kind of a couple clips and a couple stills from it to kind of get a general idea of the style, so I think my analogy is appropriate. This time around, we have Kristen Stewart of Twilight fame starring as Snow White, Charlize Theron as the Evil Queen, and Chris Hemsworth of Thor and Avengers fame as the Huntsman, who, like the driver from Drive, remains nameless. There's actually a lot of characters that remain nameless throughout this, but more on that later. Now, biggest thing I have to say about the story, it's actually pretty dense. Surprisingly so. It's not just the fairy tale, and it's not just some politically charged cloak and dagger ascension story either. It kind of blends in both the elements of the fairy tale and the key things from the fairy tale itself, and then also combines that with basically stuff that feels like it was pulled from a fantasy novel. And the characters are also given a great deal of depth. That's something I did not expect. I mean, and it's not just shown through a lot of flashbacks either. Just in their conversations with each other, you learn a lot about these characters over the course of this film. Like, particularly the Huntsman, which was actually kind of interesting, because in the original fairy tale, the Huntsman is a very minuscule part, but even in some of the side characters, you learn a pretty clear backstory. Even the Evil Queen, which is one thing I really love about this film, is that they give the Evil Queen a clear motive. They give her a clear reason for that motive. I mean, most other films just like evil for the sake of evil, but here you actually understand why. That's actually awesome. Again, this film is really good, but there are a few problems. I mean, the first problem, and I'm not just saying this because it's Kristen Stewart, because, again, she's a decent actress. She does a good job in this film, but she kind of has a problem that a lot of younger actors have, where they have this one emotion they default to when they're not actually doing anything. I mean, I've worked with a lot of actors that have had that problem. Heck, even I've had that problem whenever I've tried acting. That's why I don't act anymore. And it's that they say their line or they do their action and then they go back to the same face. MST3K has pretty much described the emotion perfectly. It's essentially dull surprise. That's basically the default emotion she keeps going to, is dull surprise. Now, my theory is that this is more of a result of the fact that Kristen Stewart has been attached to the Twilight movies for so long that it's kind of, well, stuck. It's literally the case of make that face long enough and it'll stay that way. I have a feeling that's literally what happened. Let me reiterate. Kristen Stewart is a good actress. She does a good job in this film. It's just, let's just say she definitely needs a lot more work to try to break away a lot of those habits that she probably got from being in Twilight. I'm just saying, again, she's a good actress. That was just the one detraction on her part. Now, another detraction, this is more on part of the story, is that for a film titled Snow White and the Huntsman, you don't really see that much of Snow White. You don't really explore her character all that much. I mean, in the opening prologue and in the third act, she's featured more prominently, but everywhere in between, the focus is usually either on the Evil Queen and her various henchmen pursuing Snow White and the Huntsman trying to keep her safe. That's usually where most of the focus of the film is, and I kind of would have preferred to see more of Snow White actually take the focus, especially when they're trying to make her out to be some sort of be-all, end-all savior. I really would have liked to have actually learned more about her character. Granted, the Huntsman, Chris Hemsworth does a good job as the Huntsman. The Huntsman is a good character, It's just they've put a little too much of the focus on Chris Hemsworth and Charlize Theron. Of course, I don't necessarily blame them from a marketing standpoint because, I mean, The Avengers is the 4th highest grossing film of all time as of the uploading of this video, and, well, Charlize Theron's a good actress, and so they probably actually got more top billing than Kristen Stewart. Just saying. Although the dwarves remain nameless, I kind of like these dwarves a little bit better than the ones in Mirror Mirror. Granted, I love the ones in Mirror Mirror because they actually have more distinct personalities and felt more childlike, but these ones really reminded me a lot of Gimli from the Lord of the Rings stories. They really felt more like the dwarves from a Tolkien novel than dwarves from a children's fantasy, and they actually worked in the whole, they were miners, but then when they came up from one of their mining things, everything was essentially gone to hell. And although you didn't learn all their names, or at least they were said in passing so quickly that I didn't even hear them, you still got a little bit attached to them, especially this one little young dwarf who is the youngest of the entire group, who's kind of the naive minstrel. And again, they do a good job with these characters, and this film has a really large scale to it. Because of that large scale, though, it does drag a little bit. Like, there are some scenes that really could have been cut. Some stuff was drawn out a lot longer than it needed to be, like the henchman pursuing Snow White. A couple of the scenes of those encounters could have been cut out of the movie, and it probably would have made the pacing a little bit easier. But there are, and again, although this film is very plot dense and actually is also very well put together, there are, again, some points that drag a little bit. And from what I've looked on IMDb, this is actually like the director's first time in general, at least the first time listed on his IMDb page. So if he's directed other stuff, it's not listed. But if this is a first-time director, then it kind of shows. And from a technical standpoint, there are some things that need a little work. I mean, throughout the film itself, it does a good job and actually does a better job of the shots, but that opening prologue, I don't know, some things could have been tweaked a little bit. Like, there's some parts where they use like tilt-shift lenses. Well, not really tilt-shift lenses, but they did some tilt shifting. They did some various in-camera effects that I felt, from an aesthetic standpoint, just didn't quite accomplish the effect they were going for. Although they were trying to depict a happier time, everything was still a little too muted. They could have established that contrast a little bit better. Not much else for me to really say about this film. It's a very large, epic film, has a very dense and intricate story, more than what is usually warranted for a fairy tale. And basically, it's very well put together. Everybody knew what they were doing. But the two major detractions is that it could have been cut down a little bit. And again, just if there was just a little more direction. Because I'm guessing with those expressions, the director probably didn't actually give Kristen Stewart any actual direction for those brief little moments. So it may be just either the fact that she's played Bella for so long, or the director just needed to actually give her direction in those scenes, because again, no surprise. So on my personal scale, I'm going to be giving Snow White and the Huntsman a 4 out of 5. Now, having seen both Snow White films, Snow White and the Huntsman is definitely the superior film as opposed to Mirror Mirror. I mean, it's no contest. They took their time with Snow White and the Huntsman, whereas Mirror Mirror, you can tell they rushed it. I mean, stylistically, I like Mirror Mirror, but again, you can just watch my Mirror Mirror review and see a lot of the stuff I didn't like about it, whereas this one, not as much to complain about, although the stuff to complain about is pretty big. But again, Snow White and the Huntsman is the superior Snow White film, so all that stuff now is to wait for Order of the Seven, coming out probably 2014 at this rate. If you don't know about Order of the Seven, go back to the Mirror Mirror review, and there's a link that explains about Order of the Seven to that video. I don't want to put two links on the same video. I'm just saying. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Next week, I'm going to be taking a look at Ridley Scott's Prometheus. See you then. If you're wondering about this hat, this is actually a hat sold by my taekwondo school. thus the little emblem, if you can see that clearly. It's been a long day, but yeah, glows in the dark.